Hey, what's up? It's Rob Gordon, the Wingman. I'm here at the lake to do a tutorial. I want to talk about boosting. Seems like everyone's trying to get into boosting right now, and it's something I've been doing for a little while. It's kind of my jam, and I'd like to give you guys some tips and maybe help you progress from your first little baby jumps up into getting your jumps bigger and how to really float and get ready to do some tricks. So let's talk about it. Is boosting dangerous? I don't know. Everyone's worried about getting their foot stuck in the foot strap and breaking their ankle or something. And that's certainly a possibility, but I don't think it's really that much more dangerous than regular riding. Especially if you wear that helmet, wear that impact vest, give yourself, the best chance of not getting hurt possible. The board in wingfoiling isn't as big as like a windsurfing board, so getting your foot stuck in the strap, it is a concern. It's more of a concern than kite surfing, especially because that foil adds some weight and some torque. If you're careful about it, it's not too bad just regular boosting. And we'll sort of talk about how to do it safely. Once you start doing the spins and the turns, yeah, it can get a little bit dangerous at that point for sure. My biggest concern is always the foil, more so than getting my feet stuck in the foot strap. But that is a concern. You can twist your ankle. So we'll talk about the best way to set your foot straps and the best type of foot straps.
So a lot of boards are coming with these V-strap foot straps, which I don't really like because they're not easily adjustable. You have to actually unscrew the screw and put it through a different part of the strap in order to change it, which is really inconvenient if you go from barefoot to booty riding. What I prefer is a classic windsurfing foot strap. These hold their shape really well, which is why I have it on my back foot because it gets smashed as you lay on the board. And then you can unvelcro the strap, and there's 3 more Velcro straps inside it, which allows you to precisely set how tight you want the foot strap, which I think is really important when we're talking about safety and getting that foot strap exactly where you want it. They even have another version which is easier to adjust. I don't recommend the surf straps that have the little push button because they come undone when you lay on the board to paddle. So how tight should your foot straps be? You'll notice I'm wearing booties. That's just because I have some scar tissue and we have some rocky launches and I don't want to go back and forth. So I just wear booties all the time. I think if you're barefoot, it's easier to get your foot out of the foot strap if you need to. So I prefer riding barefoot, but I just can't do it right now. You'll see this strap setup is fairly loose. It's not super loose. A lot of the riders like them really loose because that way if they fall, you can twist your foot and then hopefully your knee can go down or your ankle can go down without snapping. That's the thought process. Unfortunately, I think it's pretty easy to lose the board if you're riding with loose straps. And if you watch Robbie Solini's Instagram, she recently posted a rally where she lost the board and that foil is like flying at her head. So to me, I just want to have the strap a little bit tighter to where I know I'm not going to lose the board very often. So this is sort of where I ride it, with my ball of my foot sort of right under the strap and my toes sticking out, and I got a fairly snug fit, but I'm not quite so loose to where I'm sticking the ridge of the top of my foot under the strap. It's really more of the ball of my foot. And you'll see also it's nice to be able to sort of put your foot through and get across the center line. Back in the windsurfing days, we sort of rode the foot strap more like this a setting, which is just the toe sticking out a little bit. And that gave you a lot of control in windsurfing, and it was a nice tight fit. But I think with foiling, you just need your foot across the center line more. You'll see my front foot straps, they're a little bit looser. They don't seem to matter as much. When I lose the board, it's usually because my back foot comes out. So one more note about not getting your foot stuck in the foot strap. What I try and do is the rag doll. At least that's what I call it. If I know things are going south, I sort of like turn my body into a wet noodle and just let the crash happen. When you really try and fight it, I feel like is when you can really hurt yourself, snapping something in a direction it's not supposed to go. Lay out and go with the flow.
So what kind of board are you going to need? A small board is nice. It's easier to manage in the air. And you're going to need some straps, I do know one guy who uses a half strap in the back, and he says that's fine for him. I like to have the full strap front and back. I'm sure people will be jumping strapless at some point. I think it's kind of silly, and I don't really see a point to it. Not like in wake skating or something where you can kick flip the board around. Then it makes sense to me. It's also nice to have a light board because you got to get it out of the water. And if you're adding some weight, and like me, if you're a big guy already, the more weight you have, the smaller your jumps are going to be. But the problem with a light board is there's a good chance you could break something. You know, you might buckle the board or break the foil inserts or something like that. That's my number one tip for boosting. Be a Grom. If you weigh 110 pounds, you can get huge air because it's just simple physics, right? You're not having to pull something out of the water that weighs 200 pounds. In the same kind of wind that I'm getting 5-foot jumps, you know, Luca and some of those Groms, they're getting 10 to 15-foot jumps. And you can't just use a bigger wing. The wind power is exponential. So a bigger wing does help. But, you know, if you're somewhere where you only get 15 to 20 miles an hour wind, like your jumps are sort of limited more by the wind than by like the size wing you can take out. You can take out a bigger wing, but you're not going to get that real power. Whereas like if you live somewhere with 20 to 25 or 25 to 30 mile an hour winds, you're just going to boost so much higher because the wind is exponentially strong compared to the speed. So, and yeah, and if you're a little kid, you can just fly higher because you don't need quite as much power to get going. The foil you're on also matters a lot. I recently switched to this Unifoil Viper 170. I really like it for freestyle. It gets good pop, but it's still fast. You need a foil that's going to get you speed because that's what translates into lift eventually. So this for me is a great foil for my size at 200 pounds. It's able to get going very fast, but it still has good pop. It's also a very solid foil. Don't be jumping some really thin 1 meter wide wingspan wing. You will break it. I've broken the HPS 1050 jumping it because it's very thin and just landing on it. It's so wide and thin, you're just going to snap it eventually. I don't want to sound like I'm throwing Axis under the bus because they make really durable foils that jump very well. The HPS 880, I jumped the heck out of that thing, never had a problem. That's made for jumping. The 899 is good for jumping. Maybe even the 999 if you're a smaller rider. And probably most of the BCS stuff you could jump, you know, under 1 meter. And the PNG stuff, the pumping glides, the 910B, never had a problem jumping that. The Axis makes really strong stuff, and their aluminum mass is very strong. Their new carbon mass is very strong. That's the other thing. So if you're jumping a lot, the connection between the fuse and the mast, you might start having that front screw. You'll come in and you'll find this is loosening up. That's an issue. If you start getting any movement in that fuse to mast connection, you need to put some Teflon tape or something on that front screw, because once that there's movement in here, you can snap it. I snapped my Slingshot hover glide and I jumped a few times. I loosened it up and then I snapped it just riding. You do not want any play in here. So if you're starting to have those problems, you might not be able to jump that setup, or you might need to use some Teflon tape to make sure that screw doesn't back out. That's really important. I prefer the systems where, you know, they slot in, the mast slots into the fuse, so that gives you extra protection. Delta Hydrofoils has come up with a new system that's also built into the mast and fuse, which is a really nice idea. See how that holds up. That's maybe where the future is going. So you want to make sure you have a foil that can jump well. So this is another time where us big guys are at a disadvantage, right? We need a big foil to get up and go, but then we're going to be limited on what foils we can jump. You can't jump a really, really big foil without it breaking. And also you're not going to get speed. Get yourself a really solidly constructed foil. This unifoil is super solid so far. It's all carbon. The mast is a nice, thick, strong mast. I can go pretty fast on this and still jump. If I go to a slightly smaller foil, I'm probably able to go faster, and so that could translate into more pop. But I do a lot of flat water, light wind jumping, so I need something that's going to work for that. If you're out in the waves or somewhere with really good ramps like the Gorge or Sherman, doesn't matter what kind of foil. You can go a really small high aspect foil. If you're going fast and then you just go off a wave, you're going to fly. That's not what we're talking about here. Anyone can jump off a wave. A windsurfer can jump off a wave 20, 30 feet, with wind. What we're talking about is how to get pop out of your jumps, how to do freestyle in maybe flat water, maybe small chop. And then you can take all of those things and you can add them into the wave. And once you do that, you'll really be flying. So most of the stuff I'm going to show you is going to be in the flat water, but this all translates to the waves. I also wanted to talk about mast length. I like the 82 to 85 range for jumping and freestyle, and that's because it's a manageable length. I get a lot of room to do my down and up, but then it's not such a big mast that in the air it feels huge. I tried the 90 a lot, and some people like the 90 for jumping because you get a nice big down and up range. I was winging with Wilson from Corpus Christi, and he was working on some flockas out there in Hood River. Man, he was getting super high. He was getting high enough for 720s, and he uses a 90 because he likes that big down and up. I prefer the 82 because it still gives you a lot of room, but it's more manageable. Like I want to start doing some front flips and stuff, and I just getting that 90 around. It's starting to feel like a lot, Some people like the 75 for jumping. They just do more of a smaller movement, but if they're going off a wave and stuff, then once they're in the air, the 75 is really a lot more manageable, and it weighs less. Man, these foils, they weigh a lot, so that factors in as well to your height. Let's talk about what causes the jump, right? There's two things that cause the jump. There's the foil, and then there's the wing, and then there's the wave, actually. So I guess maybe three things that can cause the jump. When you're riding along normally, the foil is just going along like this. If suddenly you switch the angle like this, point it up a little bit, this is going to come out of the water. Pretty simple stuff, right? That's how we're going to create a jump. We're going to add some back foot pressure to change the angle of attack, and that's going to come out. Basically, just like when we were all learning and breaching a lot, we're going to do that on purpose, and we're going to commit to it. Your first jumps, we're going to start out just by sheeting in, adding some back foot pressure, and then just letting the foil come out of the water. That's going to be our first jumps. Then we're going to work on adding that with the wave, right? With a little bit of chop. After that, we're going to increase the dynamic aspect of that angle change by sending the front foot down first and then the back foot. So we're going to be going along very fast and get a quick down and up, and that's going to translate into more vertical pop. I'm going to show you guys some of this with the wing up here just to talk about the different types of jumping, and then we'll go on the water and look at some footage and kind of see how we can progress our jumps and really get them to really fly. The first thing is going to be that foil, and then we're going to be adding the wing in to get some float and more jump, and that's when it's really fun. So I've inflated my 4 meter. Like I mentioned before, a big wing is good for jumping, but this is just going to be more manageable for showing right here on land, especially in these swirly conditions. Most people will jump one direction. I jump both sides because I like to do everything on both sides. And if the waves are coming in, on your weak side and you can't jump that direction, then you're limited to toe side jumps and stuff like that on that direction. So, and I do different tricks on different sides. Certain tricks feel better on different sides. But anyway, so I'll set this up. This will be my strong side. Most people will jump their strong side. Like I said, there's going to be a few different ways to start jumping. The first method that I would recommend when you first start jumping is you'll just be going along. When you're ready and you have some good speed and power, just kind of sheet in the backhand, kind of pull it down, and then weight that back foot at the same time. And then you'll jump. Just keep it here. Stay weighted on your back foot. And then you're going to land tail first on the foil. And that's going to be probably your safest way to start jumping. You're riding along. You're getting some speed. Maybe you see a little piece of chop. You're going to pull in, weight the back foot, and then just kind of jump. Keep the weight back so that you land on the back foot. Okay? That's what I would recommend for the first jumps. Once you're comfortable jumping with just the back foot and the sheeting in, as you jump, you can kind of lift the wing up a little bit and see if it gives you some more pop. This wind is so squirrely, but so you go along, you jump, and then as you jump, just let the wing come up, and that'll float you. It's important to keep the wing still somewhat in front of you and sheet it in, because that's going to keep you getting forward momentum and allow you to land. If you just kind of bring it back too far, you're going to kind of fall underneath the wing, and you're probably not going to stick the landing. You'll see me a lot of times miss the landing because I'm really trying hard to get that lift, to get every inch out of the vertical. You lose that forward momentum. That's a trade-off you're going to have to think about, right? If you send the wing back and up, you are going to go higher, but it's going to be harder to land because you're not going to have that forward momentum. When you're first starting out, like I said, just kind of sheet in, step on the back foot, and just jump. Then after that, you can sheet in, step on the back foot, send the wing, but keep it forward. And that'll allow you to land with some speed. You can even land on foil if you get it right. Then, once you're comfortable with those things, that's when you can start trying to send the board down before going up. So you'll be riding along, get some good speed, then kind of lean forward. The board goes down, then you lean back and at the same time send the wing. And that's when you're going to get your really big, high vertical pops with hang time. So you're going along, you get some speed, kind of send the front of the board down, and then as you step back, you send the wing, and it flies, and then you kind of bring it back down to get your landing. It's important to bring it back down to get the landing. And then once you add that whole thing onto a wave, let's take a look at some of that stuff out in the ocean, out in the lake.
So before we can get into this sort of full-on jump, we got to start with small steps so we don't hurt ourselves. So this is me on my weak side. This will be a good example for people who are goofy-footed. You want to go ahead and move your hand back on the back handle so that when you do sheet in, you have power. Then go ahead and unhook. Straighten your arms out and bend your knees a little bit and just sort of get into a little position where your top half of your body and your bottom half are sort of disconnected a little bit. Then you're going to get some speed, and all you're going to do is sheet in and push that foot down to bring the foil out of the water. You're not trying to do a huge jump here. We just want to get comfortable bringing that foil out of the water. So let's do it again. You know what? Like I said, we're going to get some speed. And then, have the foil like midway in the water, not too high, not too low. And then we're just going to sheet in and push that back foot down to get the foil out of the water. You can do a little hop as it starts to come up naturally if you want to get the rear part of the foil out. But yeah, we just want to keep that back foot weight and sheeting in so that we can just sort of land on the back of the foil and not go over the falls. We just want a safe landing. You might fall because this is sort of unnatural. I think on this next one here, I do fall because this is, you're not really getting that far up. So you might fall just because you didn't really get a good jump. So here we go. We sheet in and put that little back foot pressure a little bit higher that time. And yeah, we got sucked under and then we fall. So I recommend, if you can get away with it, not to use a leash when trying a new trick. Because if you watch that Robbie Cellini Instagram video I was talking about again, watch that leash pull the board and foil right back at her head. It's pretty sketchy. So as long as you're somewhere with no strong current and no big waves, and it's not a safety issue, if there's wind, you can actually body drag after your board pretty consistently and pretty well. You take the back handle, flip the wing nose down, and then just sort of lay out. And if there's wind, it will pull you faster than the board unless you get really unlucky and the foil just engages on a wave and takes off. But yeah, if it's safe, you might want to consider going no leash. Okay, so this is me on my strong side. And I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to try and line up a little bit of chop here to go off of, and that'll help get the foil out of the water because it's going to change the angle of the tack. So here we go, sheeting in, and we're just going to push down when we see the chop and feel a gust, and it brings us, you see, a little bit farther out of the water. And it's actually easier to land if you clear the whole foil and then touch down the rear of the foil first. Make sure you stomp the back foot as you land and keep power in the wing. That will keep you up. So once you're comfortable with the basic chop hop, we want to add a little bit more action in the foil to get a better jump. Here's me luffing to demonstrate that. So let's look at it in slow motion. We want to get going as fast as possible while getting the foil high to give us room for our maneuver. I'm luffing here to show that this is just with the board speed and the foil. We go down and up, and that gets the foil out. So look at it again. We're going fast. We go up, down, up. That brings the foil out. When you combine that with the wind, especially if you send the wing, that's when you're going to get good boosts. I want to take a quick break from Boost and just talk quickly about Tack since I haven't updated you guys since my last video. I've really been finding it helpful, especially on my heel side tacks, to sort of throw the wing behind my head and let it power up there before I turn. It has really been helping me get around on foil and have nice hard tacks. If you guys are struggling with your tacks, try that behind your head and then repower motion before you turn. So back to boosting, we want to try and work on, getting a little bit of that down up to get up out of the water. So a little bit of pushing down on the front and then back foot, and that's going to get us out, especially if we can line it up with some chop. But you don't need chop. You can get pretty high just by doing that down up in flat water if you send the wing. In fact, here's a down up that doesn't even send the wing, and we get a pretty nice little clearance there. We did use chop there, though, to help us. And maybe you can see that here in slow motion. You can see me go up, down, up, off a little bit of chop, and the wing stays back. There was no sending the wing there. And then, stomping the back foot to land. We'll talk about landing in a second. So now we've got the down up going, we got the chop going, we got the sheeting in going. Let's try and send the wing a little bit. I'm not going to send the wing super far back here, but I'm just going to send it a little bit and just let it float me. And just look at the difference with adding the wing to the jump. So we go down, up, and then just letting the wing float us just a little bit. We get a much better hang time, a much softer landing. And that's just not even sending it very much. Plus, the wind just wasn't that good when I was filming. Anytime I bring out the camera, that's a good excuse for the wind to be real funky.
I mean, so you're not going to jump high if you can't even get out of the water to pump up on foil. This is great. Good conditions.
So here's a couple more views of me trying to combine everything to get a good jump where I'm, getting the chop, getting the down up, sending the wing a little bit. You'll see how important also speed is. So here is me with the speedometer, and you can see I'm actually going up to 22 miles an hour before launching this jump here. And these were some of my better jumps in the bad wind. So speed is really a pretty important factor. My friend Joe just got some straps, so he's been working on his boost, and this is a cool shot right here. And originally, when he first got the straps, he was getting some big boosts. And what happens, unfortunately, is sometimes you regress after you start boosting before you figure out what's going on. And, when we looked at the footage, it was obvious that he was getting that good speed and good power in his lead up. So right here, look, he's getting good speed, good power. He's lining everything up. But then he was carving up wind too early before his jump, and it was killing all of his speed. And so that's why those boosts are not as good as he had been getting. I've seen him get real good boosts, and he's going to be getting bigger ones than me pretty soon. So there really is so many variables in jumping. You have the speed, the down, up, the sending the wing, the chop, the floating, and it's a lot of timing. The other thing you need is you really do need good wind and a good wing. Those F1s, they jump really well and they have great hang time. This V2 Mantis is definitely better than the V1. There's so many factors to getting those good boosts. So I'll show everything also from the other side one time, and we'll just break it down. So speed, you see me get up, then down, up. And I try to do a little Rayleigh grab here, and I don't land it. So that actually gives a good way to talk about the landing. You'll see also here I sort of touch the board down to the water. That does happen sometimes when you try and aggressively pop. Sometimes I feel like it actually gives more vertical height, but it slows you down. So ideally you would not do that. So why did I not land this? Well, remember I said you need to sheet in and keep that wing up above and in front of you to land? Well, when you go for a grab and you let go of the back hand, you automatically sheet out. So unless you are high enough to recover and get the wing back where it needs to be, you're going to get sucked under and fall in. So keep powering the wing, keep it up above and in front of you, land a little bit downwind, and yes, you're gonna land back foot and you might sink the nose. So be ready to keep back foot pressure and powering the wing to stay up. So the last thing I want to mention is if you send the wing up fast and hard, you're going to go more vertical pop. Same with if you sort of point upwind as you jump. If you keep the wing, send the wing up but keep it in front of you, you're going to go more of a long jump. And that's also going to be the same as if you point downwind when you jump. Once you get all this down, then you can start trying the flockas, the Rayleighs, and the 360s and all this other stuff, and go boost off of waves, up to the moon. And like I said, if you want to really be good at jumping, be a Grom.